Hi there, I'm Lily and I'm here today to talk about the Tubular Cast On. My YouTube channel is Curatorial Knits and I have a pattern called the Beginner's Welcome Hat. And today what we're going to be doing is talking about how we're going to create a tubular cast on, which is a knitting technique to start your knitting. And it gives you this really wonderful rounded edge, which is used in the Beginner's Welcome Hat to create a nice and stretchy edge that feels really good against your skin if you'd like to wear it with the hat down, but also creates a really beautiful folded rim here, as you can see in these samples. We are going to be using one strand of this fairly light worsted weight yarn from Ritual Dyes and one strand of mohair, also from Mohair Silk Blend, also from Ritual Dyes. We're going to be holding the two strands together to create a full worsted or light Aran weight yarn. Now, the first thing that we're going to do when we cast on for a project, and again, this is for true beginners, this is a great place to start. And if you're used to knitting, if this is your first time doing a tubular cast on, stick around. We are going to be able to do this for everyone. So the first thing that we're going to do is identify the two ends of the yarn. So we have our tail, that's where the two pieces start and end. And then we have our working yarn, which is coming off of the two balls of yarn that we have on the side to the left. So to make sure that we have enough tail working yarn, I'm going to estimate how much I'm going to need. About one loop around is going to be one stitch. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's about 10 stitches. I'm going to give myself a little bit extra, and I'm going to count off however many lengths of this I would need to get the number of stitches on my needle. So if I needed to cast on 10 stitches, this would be enough. I'd give myself a little extra just in cases. If I needed to do 20, about there, 30, 40, 50, 60, and so on. So this is going to be about good for me right now. And now I'm going to talk about how we hold our yarn for this cast on. The first thing we're going to do is put our left hand into a little bunny rabbit shape here with our pointer finger and thumb together. We're going to loop that yarn with our working yarn attached to the balls here and our tail over on this side. Loop that around. And now turn our hand over and you can see the two sides of the yarn are coming together into a nice triangle. We're going to grip them nicely, creating some tension in between on top. So this is kind of like a very loose trampoline kind of feeling here. And then the two strands coming together here, and they're just going to keep flowing together as we use the yarn to create our stitches. And again, we have that nice kind of trampoline feeling on the top of that triangle. We're going to take our working needle. We're going to just push down on that trampoline and give it a twist. Oh, look, there's a stitch. We are going to call this our first stitch, and this is a knit stitch. So you'll notice that our knit stitches are V's and our purl stitches are bumps. That's going to be important from the cast on all the way through to our ribbing to the final end of our projects. So this is our knit stitch, and there's that beautiful V. Now we're going to create a purl stitch. To create a purl stitch, we are going to go up and around, and then down and under. So now we have another loop on top, but if you look at the bottom of the needle, there's our little bump, and that's how we know it's a purl. Next, we're going to create another V. V's go down. So I'm going down first, getting a loop over, and then up and twist. Now, if I'm worried to know if this is a V, if this is a knit or a purl, I'm going to turn and look for my V again. Do you see that little twist at the bottom? Now I know I'm right. Now we're going to do our purl. That's above or up and then down and twist around There's my purl bump. Now you'll see I have knit, purl, purl, and I'm going to keep that rhythm going. So to do my knit stitch, I'm doing my V down and up, and my purl is up first, then down. I'm going to create a little rhythm with this now, and you can see how it flows. I still have a little bit of tension here, again, like a little bit of a loose trampoline or drum feeling here. And I'm holding my stitches on my needle with a little bit of grace, but fairly firmly, so that I know they're going to stay together. I've just done that purl bump here. The yarn's coming in front here. So I know next I need to do my V. Down and up, and my purl, up and down. Knit, purl, knit, and purl. And if I ever want to double check, I can hold here, and you can kind of see how they're working together in pairs. That's also going to make it easy for me to count to make sure that I'm on the right track for the number of stitches that I need for my project. I have my purl here. Again, my knit starts down. That's that V shape we've got here. And our purl starts up. I'm going to keep going. You can follow along and kind of start to feel this rhythm of down and up and down, down and up and down. And you'll see I'm just using my pointer finger and my thumb to snuggle those stitches in next to each other. Down and up, that's my knit, up and down, that's my purl. And as I'm moving the yarn from my tail and my working yarn from my balls, they're kind of edging it their way up through my fingers, right, through this lovely triangle. We've just done another purl. I can double check here to be sure I know what's up. It's crossing here. So now I know next is my V and knit stitch. Down and up and down, down and up and down. There's my purl, down and up. There's my knit. So I'm going to keep going until I have the proper number of stitches that I need for my project on here. And then I will see you in just a moment where we do the next step of this tubular cast on. See you in a sec. Okay, and we're back. I have the proper number of stitches on my needles. I just double checked with my count, and I have my last stitch on here, which is a purl stitch that I cast on. Now, my next move with the tubular cast on, even though I am going to be eventually knitting in the round to create my round hat, or you might be making a sweater, it might be good for your collar, what have you. In any case, my next move is actually not going to be to join in the round, but instead to do a little bit of a setup to create this kind of puffy edge. Now to do that, I'm going to start working my piece flat. So that means turning my work around and getting ready to start with my working yarn. Again, that's the yarn that's attached to my balls of yarn here. You can see my little tail. It's right here. I have about, 5 or 6 inches there, maybe 4 or 5. And I'm ready to go. Now, I like to knit my ribbing continental. So I'm going to be holding my yarn in my left hand, my working yarn in my left hand, and I'm just gave this yarn tail a little tug just to make sure it's nice and secure. Now you see on this side, my first stitch is a knit stitch on the neck, and the next stitch is a purl stitch. So I'm all set to jet. I'm going to grab my other end of my needle. I'm going to just scrunch those guys down so they're out of the way. And I'm going to start to knit. Now I have noticed that this stitch is actually set up on the needle so that I'll be knitting into the back loop to create my knit stitch. And now I'm not going to purl this stitch, even though that's what I'll be doing for most of my hat. I will not purl this stitch. Instead, I'm going to slip it off with the yarn held in front. And there's my purl. And once again, here's my knit stitch. I'm knitting it through the back loop and off, and my purl stitch. I'm just lifting off with my yarn held in front so it looks like a pearl. And I'm knitting through the back loop and lifting off my purl stitch. Knitting through the back loop of my knit and slipping off my purl stitch. So now you can see here, we're already starting to have our ribbing pattern set up. Our knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. And that's set just from those different ways we were twisting the yarn. Again, the way that I do my tubular cast on, I do end up having to go through this back loop, but I do think it makes a really wonderful finish right here. So I'm going to continue with that, knitting through the back loop, up and over, and then slipping the yarn with my, slipping the loop, excuse me, with my yarn held in front for my purls. Knit through the back, up and off the needle, and slipping with the yarn held in front. I'm going to continue to do this, knitting through the back loop, up and over, and slipping my purl stitch off with the yarn in front. I'm going to keep doing this for my row, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, and we're back again. My last stitch is a purl stitch. Here's my knit. So I have left it on the needles. I'm wrapping this working yarn around. And now I have to get back to the beginning. So I'm turning my work and I'm going to knit one more row just flat. And now, what sorcery is this? My knits are now what I skipped over, which were my purls on the other side. So I get to do the exact same thing. I'm going to knit my knits. This time I can go in through the front loop because I've put them properly and I've rearranged the leg properly. And now I just slip my purls. Remember, these purls are the stitches I had just knit on the last row, so I can give them a slip. So now we're going to be totally even. The stitches that were purls on the other side are now knits, and they get my attention. And I slip by the guys I already knit on the other side. So I'm slipping that, again, working yarn held in front. And I really do think ribbing, holding the yarn in my left hand works the best for me. So that's what I'm sharing today. And we're gonna keep going. Knit my knit, slip my purl, knit my knit, slip my purl. Knitting through the front leg again to make that nice rounded edge, and slipping my purl. Knit my knit. Oh man, that's already looking so nice and squishy, isn't it? Oh, I just love this fabric. And slip the purl. And I'm gonna keep going until I reach the other side. I'll see you in a moment. And we're back. We have just finished our second row of knitting our knits and slipping our purl stitches. And you can already see that wonderful curve around puffy edge that you can see in our finished projects here, and of course there as well. And now we are going to join in the round and start our straight ribbing for our hat. So my next move here is to make sure, first of all, that I'm holding my working yarn in my knitting hand. So this is, again, the yarn attached to our balls of yarn here. Our little tail is still just hanging out behind us. And I'm going to pick up my stitch marker. This is how I'm going to know that I'm coming to the end of a row. And once I pass it, I'll know I'm on the next row or round of knitting. I'm also going to be able to really easily see after doing those 2 rows flat that my stitches are all even. There's no big twist in them. Whenever a pattern says being careful not to twist your stitches, they don't want you to go around like this. Do you see this little twist? Oh dear, that would be terrible to have in our hat, right? We want our edges nice and straight, and I can tell that really well because all of my edges are facing each other in this little circle. So now I'm going to take my working yarn up and I'm ready to knit my knits. And this time I get to purl my pearls instead of skipping them over, and away we go. So now you can actually see very easily knitting my knits and purling my pearls that my edge is already that nice poofy but secure cast on edge that I just love for this project. One nice thing too about using a strand of silk mohair in this hat project is that it really does keep this edge from stretching out too much, which I also think is a really nice solution there. So you can see now the end of my row is connected to the beginning, and in between is my happy little stitch marker there, letting me know that I'll be done with the row when I come back to it. And we're off to the races. Purling, knitting, purling. And I have a separate tutorial about how I like to do my ribbing to keep it nice and snug. That's worked out really well for me after making so many of these ribbed hats. And you can watch that next if that's of interest. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Again, I'm just gonna look at that beautiful little edge there. Oh, it's just looking gorgeous. And it's gonna feel so nice and comfy cozy on our heads. Thank you again. This has been Lily with the Curatorial Knits podcast, talking about how to make a beautiful tubular cast on edge for the beginner's welcome hat. The link to the pattern will be in the description box if this is new to you. And if you've come here from the pattern, good luck, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.